Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis. What was accomplished by the Day of Action for Black Lives Matter at camp?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
This episode of the CampHacker podcast is brought to you by UltraCamp. Wouldn't it be refreshing if your registration software gave you more time? With UltraCamp, you can track attendance, manage staff applications, streamline registration, and much more. Get back the time you need to focus on what's really important, camp. Find out more at summercampsoftware.com/camphacker.
Hello, Camp Pros. I'm Travis Allison from Go Camp Pro. Excited to have you here today. We have a special edition of the CampHacker podcast. As I said, I'm Travis Allison. You may know some of my work through the Summer Camp Professionals Group and as a co-founder of Go Camp Pro.
I'm Doug Sutherland, Executive Director of Brentwood Camp in Greenfield, New Hampshire.
I'm Lily Mercoliano Easton. I'm the Camp Director at Camp Wawa Sequoia, which is located in Southfield, Massachusetts, and I'm coming on today from Albany, New York.
Hi, I'm Scott Arizala. I am a summer camp consultant and trainer, and I am calling in from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Well, welcome. I'm so grateful to have the three of you here on the CampHacker podcast. The four of us sort of ad hoc organized this day, and we were having a wrap-up meeting and thinking about the email that we just sent out this week to give people an overview, and thought, let's take some time and talk it over and think about the future of the movement of Black Lives Matter at camp and some of that. So we thought, we'll throw the recording on and have that discussion. First of all, I'd like to start with what was your reaction to the day? What did you hear about it, or how did it affect stuff in your camp world? Scott, how about you? I'll start with you.
You know, I just had such a fun day that day. I loved it. And really for me, it was because there was so much putting ourselves out there. It was the sort of the accountability piece that I really appreciated. Some people got really creative and did sort of their own thing. A lot of camps posted, just a cut and paste statement. But it was the actual act of putting yourself out there with your colleagues, with your families, with whoever else follows you on social media and or through your email blasts or whatever you did. I felt like the act of saying it out loud and pulling your colleagues in the industry sort of into that accountability piece was amazing to watch.
Yeah, I totally agree. How about for you, Doug?
It was an interesting day, primarily because I didn't know what to expect. I've never done anything like that before, and I was hopeful and nervous, and but also trying not to expect too much from the community because I didn't want to be disappointed. Not that I thought I was going to be disappointed, I just didn't want to be. But then I just started seeing so much happen. I started seeing camps that I recognize, but I haven't had any direct contact with, but I know of that camp, which was great. And also the varying levels of action, I guess. Some of them were very cookie cutter. Which is great. I'm glad they're saying something. Some were very specific, about this is what we're doing. And seeing stuff from ACA New England, ACA National, and other organizations around that, I thought were great. I think the one interesting thing was that I didn't think about the move across the country. Right. So
through the time zones.
Yeah, through the time zones. I didn't how come they're not saying anything? Oh, it's because it's still early there. And
6 a.m. there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that part was kind of shocking for me. But it was fun.
That's awesome. How about for you, Lily?
I really appreciated those specific resources that came out. I don't think it was the majority of what we saw that day, but for me as a camp director of a small camp, it was definitely just great to see how detailed some camps are getting and really start thinking about comparing it to what we're doing. What can we take on and how are people pushing this beyond just something that's happening one day on social media, but really into, what we're doing with our boards, what we're doing with our camps, with our programs. And I really liked seeing the type of accountability tools that some folks are building into sort of how you can check on this work later.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. For me, I had a couple of people reach out to me. Let's call it probably 4 BIPOC camp pros who said, "This is the first time I feel seen in this job," and that's hugely important. I hope that there were more people who felt that but didn't reach out to me. We talked about what our goals for the day would be, and I think we definitely exceeded them. We wanted there to be a good number of camps who could say to our staff, fellow camp pros of color, and to our camp families that this is a place where we are working to make this safe and to recognize that it hasn't been until now in lots of different ways. And so I think we accomplished that. I wanted to know who those people are. We had 750 camps participate by signing up for the email. It was impossible for us to count how many people actually did post stuff, but so many. It was great. It was really, really good to see. And I also think one of the best outcomes for me was the amount of sharing. And you alluded to each of you alluded to this, that there was a lot of people sharing problem solving. I appreciated that in the Slack discussion, there was some people thinking ahead and saying, okay, if we get negative feedback or negative pushback, how do we deal with it? People who, and Lily was a great example of this, that something negative had happened from one person or 2 people, and everybody shared their answers. And I thought that was pretty amazing outcome for that day. It was just the community gathering around, let's solve this problem together, and then make the commitments keep going.
The other thing that came out of it for me was I had before the day had camp professionals, people that ran camp organizations. They actually reached out and asked, "So how can I say this?" And the first thing I told them was like, we have to talk about it. It's not like there's a cookie cutter way to say this, or even just a way to go about it. Like, what are you trying to get out there, and then put it down. I think and I got that from at least 3 to 4 camps in New Hampshire, and a couple of camps even in New England, depends on where they were calling from, I guess. But what I liked about it was that they were putting some thought into it, and they wanted to make sure they said the right thing. Yep. And what I told them all is like, I have no idea if this is going to be the right thing. But you should say something. Do you have to say something? No, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. But if you're going to say something, say it. And it may not be right, but it still shows that you're doing something. You're having the conversation at least. And in those organizations, they put stuff out. Not all of them, but at least they're starting the conversation. We'll see what happens after the holidays, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that piece around getting to share and build community together within camps, that was really big for me. And I knew that was going to be an important part of the day, but to have that actually play out, that really struck me, because we can do anti-racism work in our lives generally, but to do it specific within the camp world is its own thing. And I knew that would be the case, but it was helpful to get to connect with other people who can really talk about, well, this is how I specifically speak to, say, pushback within the camp world, not just pushback, how I talk to my grandma or whatever, but how we talk about it within the camp world and how we frame this in this industry. And I'm excited to see how that can keep building just through connections and getting to share our tools and our resources. And I think that's the reason to make sure it's happening specifically in camp, not just that we're, pulling or doing this work in other places.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that I was so excited about in hearing some of those, or having some of those same conversations that Doug was talking about. I even had some conversations with some folks who I know ended up not posting anything public necessarily on the day of action. And to me, why that even felt okay is because they were starting to tackle some of those first conversations, and they're starting to hear from their CEOs or their boards or whoever else how people are feeling. I had some conversations in the other direction where some young folks were real nervous about what was going to happen, and they walk into their proverbial CEO's office, which is obviously on Zoom these days, but to have the conversation, and the CEO and or the boss was over the top about it and said stuff like, "Why didn't we do this before? Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Yes, let's get fully behind it." So I think some of those conversations, I'm hoping, are now leading to, okay, well, what's next? How do we now tackle this? I maybe had a really hard conversation with my executive director. I maybe had a really surprisingly easy one, or anywhere in between. Okay, now what? We put ourselves out there. We made ourselves sort of accountable to the space, to each other. Now what do we do? And I think that's where some folks are starting to wrestle in their organizations around, okay, well, what is that next step? Do we make some policy changes? Do we think about recruitment differently? Do we talk to our families? Like, what is our sort of next step in all of this?
One of the interesting things, and I think this came from a discussion between the four of us, but one thing that really opened my mind, made me consider things in a different way, was hearing people say, our organization, or putting out the statement on the day, will not be productive for our organization. It is better for us to do real work. We put real policies in place because we anticipate opposition, because it's better for our organization to say, this is a true statement. Black Lives Matter do matter at camp. And here's all the things. Like, here's all the things we're doing. And I thought it was a great perspective. I appreciated people saying, we're not just going to put out this token statement. In this case, someone called me and said, we appreciate the fact that you've written a statement that we can just post. We're not going to do this because we are going to do real work. We're going to put the policies in place, and then we can open up with the statement and all of the things that we've done. So I appreciate both sides of this. Like, let's start with the statement and we'll build, or we're going to build and then hopefully not have to make the statement, because all of our actions from this point point to this, believing in this and working on this.
I think that's interesting. I mean, I love the work going into it. And they want to make sure they do it right, or they want to make sure they do something, but maybe let's say they want to make sure they do it right. It's interesting though that like for me, for my camp, let me use my camp as an example, is I want to be held accountable by the people that come to my camp, staff members and campers. I want them to say, what I told them this is what I'm doing. I want them to see this is what I've done, because I think for so long we have the conversation. We don't tell anybody. We have the conversation. We don't know what to do about it. So then it disappears because no one knows that we were doing it in the first place. And until that one person asks, it's just that one person instead of a group of people. And I'm not putting people doing it that way, I'm not putting them down, because I believe that they're going to actually do something. And I do also believe that the people going to camp are going to say something. Like, it is my hope that this doesn't die. And I'm not Black Lives Matter at camp. I'm not talking about that. Just this whole conversation doesn't die off because, well, we're moving on beyond that because we have to deal with COVID. And once we get past COVID, then maybe we'll talk about it. I think it's going to be something that people are going to be talking about. And I think camps and organizations have to continue the conversation because it's going to come up. And if it doesn't come up, well, I, for one, I will bring it up. If I'm not hearing about it, I'm going to bring it up. So hopefully I'm not in your organization if you don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to that too, because I feel like I agree actions definitely speak louder than words, and we're trying to see change in our industry overall, and specifically at our camps and the places that we have power to make change. I think one of the issues, though, is that if we don't say it out loud, how do they know we're changing? How do they know we're trying to do better? I mean, I had a few, not very many, but I had a few no, all lives matter type responses to my email blasts that were going out asking people to join us. And while I didn't respond, I didn't want to get into a digital argument with anybody. I'm happy to talk to somebody. What I wanted to say was, well, do they know that all lives matter at your camp? Because I think there's lots of people of color who come to your camp that are scared and don't necessarily know that they are just as important as everybody else to you. Whether you want to say that phrase or some other phrase or whatever, however you want to say it, I think there was a lot of like, we already do this work. No, we're good. We don't need this statement. That falls in that sort of same camp, no pun intended, well, I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I'm not going to say anything at all. Or I'm not going to say anything until we've done some work so that we can show people that we've done some work. All these things sort of smell of cover to me, as opposed to doing some of the hard work. Let's put ourselves out there. Let's just start doing the hard work. And when we make some mistakes, we just say we made some mistakes and we move on. Just like how each and every one of us would want to work with a kid who's making some not great choices.
Right.
Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my favorite kids.
We don't have favorites at Camp Travis, but
I'm not a camp director anymore, so I can say that.
Neither am I. I'm a parent, and I can say that too. Those are my favorites.
Well, and a really totally good point, and I like your phrase that you're just part of the cover up. But I think it's worth noting to people who are listening or watching us that if your organization is uncomfortable with this, we knew that would be part of it, uncomfortable for everybody to take this kind of stand. But if you're only thinking of your current parents or your alumni, and this, I mean, getting into pissing off your alumni, acknowledging camp's long-time practice of cultural appropriation for different Native communities, making that uncomfortableness and holding you back. What I think you really need to acknowledge and absorb is that your campers, your staff, they're engaged in these issues, and you either choosing not to make a statement or choosing not to follow up on that. When you do make a statement or doing it in reverse, like we've just been talking about, that will be seen by families. So yeah, I see all that.
Well, and can I add something really practical for everybody right now? I mean, there's lots of camps out there that still do have traditions that either on a very surface level, something like color war, or on a very not surface level, still dressing up in Native American headdress and all this kind of stuff for rituals and whatnot. I would push everybody to say it's not the cultural appropriation part that everybody is sort of sentimental about and wants to keep. That's not the part. And for anybody, the very few that's the part, well, that's just, explicitly racist. I think what the part is the tradition, the ritual, the historic feeling of how I'm connected to a bigger community, a bigger idea through this ritual. That's the part that I would push camps on. And in a really practical way, how can you pull that out of this very problematic ritual that you have and keep that thing while taking care of the pieces that are not okay around that ritual and culture and tradition? That's the part that I think we need to have a harder and a longer conversation with folks like our alumni, who aren't necessarily going to be around to have some of these more in-depth conversations about how we pull what we really want out of that and leave the problematic parts behind. And better yet, recognize those, apologize for those, and try to do something productive to sort of mend or fix some of the very problematic things that we've done in our history and through our traditions and our rituals. So that's where I would really push camps into a practical space around this, not just, hey, it's going to be uncomfortable, but yeah, let's make the uncomfortable part like action oriented. Let's use that uncomfortableness to do something about it.
Well, and I think that's interesting, because when I think of camps and their traditions and their the way they've always done it. Alumni, like back when I was a camper, we used to walk uphill both ways or whatever they say.
Definitely snow,
camp.
Doug. There's definitely lots of snow in the summer.
With that. Right. Yeah.
Man, don't listen to him. He's from Canada.
Yeah, right.
Of course, there's snow at camp in Canada.
Right. But I think it's like, camp is different already. I mean, it's not like it's, by doing this, you're going to make camp different, or by changing this, someone dressing in, big headdress. Oh, that's not how camp was. Like, wait, camp changes every year, no matter how much campers, staff members, alumni want it to change. There were not cell phones a long time ago. And now, it's like, well, we have to have cell phones. So it's almost just a choice. The camps, alumni, campers, staff, they just have to make the choice, like, we want to change this. And then it's okay if they fight it and like, well, we have to have that person in a headdress, because then you ask the question, like, what's more important, the person in the headdress that's presenting this award, or you getting this award for what you've done at camp? Like, is it the headdress or is it the award? Like, what is it? Having someone there with face paint on, or, quote unquote war paint, if that's what it is? Well, what is that person doing? Well, they're introducing such and such. And like, well, that's still going to happen, just without the quote unquote war paint. I'm like, I just think people need to just really look at what they're actually doing and what people will remember. Is that the most important thing? And again, remember, camp is different. It is different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years, 20 years ago when I first started. It's different. And we just have to look at that as this is just camp evolving.
Yeah, there is no single way that I would run camp these days with the same training that I had as a counselor. No way. It is vastly different.
I tell you what, though, the docs would be put in really well at your camp if we were running training the way we did in the 90s.
The docs training, which was work around camp.
Yeah, put the docs in.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Universal.
Exactly. Some things don't change. I'll give you that. Some things can change. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where I think it goes back to making sure that as an industry, we're setting in these touch points to really have these conversations, because the changes are happening. They're happening at camps, and they've been happening. It's not like a brand new thing. I'm super curious, honestly, to know more about the integration of camps, because that's been a thing that's been going on since, I don't know, at my camp, I guess, since the 70s. And it's not something that we really talk about in our industry. I'm sure because we don't want to talk about how segregated our industry was and how segregated it still is now. We don't want to talk about that. But I think it's important for us to know that talking about that will also allow us to have these other conversations, right? Hearing from leaders in our industry that have made these changes and the ways that we're continuing to make these changes. And we can hear each other's stories and go, oh, look, I can do that too. Oh, and that it doesn't happen unless we're pushing this forward and we're going through the pieces that are hard or uncomfortable, or we're feeling defensive, or if we don't do those things, then we don't get to those, positive changes. And then that's just sad. I mean, to me, like, then we're leaving our industry behind. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to feel the other repercussions, which is like, our camps are not going to be as good as they could be.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already started practicing too, which is the thing. Like, we started getting really good as an industry, 20 years ago, starting to talk about kids with disabilities, kids with special needs, right? We started talking about that. It was uncomfortable for a lot of camps. Why? Because those are the kids that, 20 years ago, we just said no to because, we don't have a policy. We just said no. And then, mainstream programs starting to build and whatever. And I'm not saying that everybody's doing great. And I'm not saying everybody always historically did bad. I'm just saying that it's become easy to talk about in our industry. And even if we can identify, what we could do better at our camp around a mainstreaming program or this or that, we're not shy to say that, and we'll just go ahead and put it out there and start working on it. I think that if we can look at that practice that we've all done professionally as an industry and say, hey, we've got our own model to follow as far as how we're going to do this. We just have to be in the same way we were ready to be uncomfortable, because we all recognize, guess what? Kids with special needs, they deserve camp too. Mm-hmm. Are we ready to be just as uncomfortable when we say, hey, guess what? Kids from, different communities, people of color deserve camp just as much as everybody else, as all the white kids? Are we ready to say that? Are we ready to just like have the harder conversation and get more used to talking about it, putting ourselves out there and saying, like you just said, Lily, maybe we haven't done such a great job. You know what? Our camp's only been, quote, integrated, for the last 30 years in a conscious way. Maybe we need to be more conscious about it, so on and so forth.
Do you remember why you got into summer camp in the first place? Sometimes all the busy work associated with running camp keeps us from seeing why we are there. Ultra Camp helps you get back to what you love, helps you really dig into why you're at camp. So what does that mean? It means not worrying about limits. You have unlimited custom reports, you have unlimited support, unlimited training, and unlimited users on your Ultra Camp database. So exclusive to CampHacker listeners, and we're grateful to Ultra Camp for this, for a limited time, you get free setup. If you think all this sounds too good to be true, please call Ultra Camp and have a talk with them. They'd love to show you a future where you can have the time to get back to what's really important, running a great summer camp. So visit their website, summercampsoftware.com/CampHacker. That's summercampsoftware.com/CampHacker, and set up a time to chat with them. They really look forward to meeting you. Lily, I'm curious for you, what do you think are important steps to keeping the momentum going at your camp or in the industry? What do you think?
Well, we've been talking some about, I think goals and data and accountability are really key. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about. I've been at my camp. This is my 4th year as a director. I grew up there. But that's, I think, and I keep coming back to that. So like when I first came back to the camp, really making sure that we're collecting racial data about our campers and our staff. And I think there's some good threads in the Slack about how to do that, that's legal and respectful. But that was like a starting point. And then, starting to think about then how do you keep pushing that into looking at all the different areas, salary and retention. And I think there's a lot of, it really depends on the goals. And then I think that other piece, which connects to what we were talking about a little while ago, is how are we publishing that for people? And I know for my camp, that's part of where we're at now, is what are the goals that we want to be putting out on an annual basis and really then reflecting on. And I think that's a whole other challenge. And that's part of what I've been trying to think about within the industry also. How can our industry collect better data, provide more resources around data, and just that accountability piece?
Mm-hmm. The way I would answer that question, Travis, is I want everyone to start taking those hard conversations like to each other, to the people, to their constituents, to families, to their board, to, internally to their year-round staff. Start, sort of confronting the hard conversations and start jumping into them without practice and without resources and without, hemming and hawing and thinking about it, because those are going to be the moments that help us become more comfortable with harder conversations, and B, will sort of give us, the sort of next action step, the next space, which I think is going to lead towards training, right? We've got to be able to train ourselves. We got to get the right training. We got to be able to train our organization about what does anti-racism even mean, those kinds of pieces. And then we got to, start doing the work. I think doing the work is taking a look at how our values, both as individuals, professionals, as well as our organizational values, are already in line. I've yet to read on a camp website or hear from a camp professional anything that sort of falls outside of what I would call, sort of an anti-racist idea. You know what I mean? Our values are already in line. It's now a matter of saying that out loud and starting some real work there. And part of that is not being scared to have, really hard conversations and sort of dive into that, what could be conflict.
And then jumping off of there, where I would go with that is, all right, so you've had the conversations, you got stuff in place, or you're trying these new things. All right, so then what? And then what? So, all right, so you have all this stuff. Well, go out there and find, staff of color. Great. Where do I find staff of color? Well, they could already be your campers. Maybe they're not where your staff are coming from right now. So that means you may have to go someplace else. oh, another trip. It was during COVID. What do I do? Yeah, okay, whatever. But go out and find them. So then you find them and then you get them to camp. And then the work is not done just because they are at camp. You have to help them and feel comfortable in a setting that they're probably not used to, where they may be the only one or the only five, and they may want to gather together because they're the only five, and have people look at them in a way like, well, they only want to hang out with each other. Like, you need to get over that. You need to get over that, right? And now they're there and they go the whole summer. They're great staff members. Then the next step is to foster that relationship, keep it going. If they are really good staff members and you really want them back, you stay in touch with them. You reach out to them. You look at your camper base and it's like, I want these campers of color, just like I want all my campers. I wish they can all come back, but I really want these campers of color. I want to have them be a part of camp. Well, you contact those families. You stay in touch with them the same way you stay in touch with your other families. If they don't call you, guess what? Give them a call. Say, I was thinking about you today. So that keeps it in your camper's mind, and then eventually they'll be staff. Just keep that cycle going. The problem is right now we just stop. Like, oh, they don't want to come back.
Yeah.
Or
Just
I don't want to go
happen.
I don't want to go to that neighborhood. It's like, well, then they're gone, right? So having the conversation, then you go find the staff members, and hopefully those staff members will also then encourage those campers, because now they see people that look like them in those roles, not just in the kitchen and not just doing maintenance-y stuff around camp. I'm talking about in teaching swimming, wakeboarding, tennis, soccer, whatever. They see people that look like them there, and that's what we in the world say. If you see someone that looks like you and doing what you may want to do, you feel like you can do it. So I think we have to keep that going. We just have to keep it going, and we can't keep it going until we get it going. So I would say, pardon me. Go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry.
I just want to be clear about something. Like, in order to do that, I think we have to do two things. One, we have to sort of be proactive, right? I hear what you're saying. We got to go look for ways that we can recruit and all this kind of stuff. But I think the conflict part that I was talking about comes into play at the half step before that, where I have to be willing to say to myself, you know what? My strategy around recruiting has been not as, quote, colorblind as I've wanted it to be. And so I have done something wrong, and be willing to sit with the uncomfortableness of that and be like, have I really been cutting off my populations of color sort of before I even get to invite them into staff, before I can even, have I been doing that? And I think that takes a level of accountability, maturity, responsibility. And if it means you got to put it out on Instagram so that somebody is going to check you, then do it, because that is a hard pill to swallow. I could easily see myself being like, I'm going to be all proactive and do all these great things and get more people of color, but then stop short of being critical of what I've done, the work that I've done in the past, because that doesn't feel very good. And I'm not sure I can accept that. Well, then it means that every proactive piece I am trying to do is a very sort of token, it's a very sort of surface. I'm doing this for the optics, not necessarily because I want to change. And I think that's the really hard part that we all as individuals need to struggle with. We have to wake up every day and say, I got to do the hard work too, so that the hard work I'm trying to get my organization and my camp and our culture to do, I can lead by that example. I might not be the best, but I'm going to try. And I think those are some of the crucial pieces that we got to get through in order to make some of this work really, in order for the outcomes to be what we want them to be, which is that all of our kids and all of our staff are sort of getting that experience that we call summer camp to the level that we know we can deliver it.
Yeah. And we have to do it with other people. I think that's so key. Like, we can't think we're going to do this by ourselves because we woke up and it was the camp day of action and we posted. So, just like anything else that we do well at camp. And that's what makes me hopeful within the camp industry, right? Is that we are a place that really does incredible things. But I think we have to remember how we do those incredible things, right? We always do those incredible things grounded in connections to other people and grounded in our health and grounded in, spirit and grounded in this much deeper place. And so that's where we have to be. And that's why I think it's so important that whatever people are doing or camps are doing, you're not thinking that you're going to do it all by yourself. You're pairing up with some other camps or in a forum or a book group. And the Summer Camp Society, I know, has been doing some book groups. You're doing it with other people because it's just not, you're going to hit roadblocks. There's no one's going to be great at this and perfect at this and just steamroll ahead. In the same way that I think that camps that are doing really incredible anti-racism or Black Lives Matter work at camp, we need to be thinking about the folks that are doing it the best. I'm sure they need more support and more resources and more funding. And they're not gonna hit their peak on their own either. Like none of us are. And I think that's super, super important. I think that's true in this work, even not in camp, but in the camp world, we have to be doing it with other people. And if we don't have it in our organization, I think people need to be finding then where are their peers out there that can do that shared experience.
Yep. This is the very beginning slice of an enormous pie, this discussion. And so I'd love to keep doing these conversations as our own check-in, and definitely interested in bringing more voices in this. I want to remind people that if you go to Black Lives Matter at camp.com, you can find the resources. There's a section there of camp pros of color who are doing this work. They're doing this training. I know Doug's doing it too with staff, and would definitely encourage all camp pros to go find and support the camp pros who are doing this work. And we'll make it easier for your organization, make it easier for you to live up to the mission of the work that all of you do. So please do check that out. So I'm going to wrap up the topic there for now. In CampHacker tradition, we always end this off with a tool that helps people be a better camp director. So I've invited my co-host today to bring a tool, not necessarily related to the topic, and by the looks of it, not specifically related to the topic that we've been talking about, but I kind of like that part of it. So I welcome you to the tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
So, Scott, what's the tool that you would recommend that people check out to make themselves a better camp director?
So I wish I had it. I could show you for if you're watching on YouTube, but you can't. I can't. You'll just have to Google it. It's a book by a guy named Questlove. He's the drummer for The Roots. It's called Creative Quest. It's one of the most interesting books on creativity I think I have ever read. Not only his approach and his understanding, the way he tries to define creativity, but then the sort of practical suggestions on how to become more creative. The thing that I took away that I want to share with camp directors and why this book on creativity, would be a tool for camp directors is because he makes the argument that whatever you do, you're an artist. It just depends on how you see yourself. And it was one of the most interesting sort of paradigm shifts I've had for my own life and thinking and looking at my work and my career as trying to see it as art, as what I was creating. And in so many ways, I identified really strongly with that, and I sort of never looked back. And I would strongly suggest all camp directors to really not only read the book, but think about what you do as art, because I really do think that it is.
Great. That's a great one, Scott. Thank you. Lily, what's your tool of the week?
I had it right here. I'm going to share Rise Up Singing. And this is like an old classic. I grew up with this at camp, and then my camp director gave it to me when I became a camp director. So it's a book of chords and lyrics to, it says on the cover, 1,200 songs. But it's a really great book, and has a huge variety of songs, and it's divided up by category. So that's really nice for different, if you do like a reflection time or you do a campfire, you can look up, there's playful songs, there's justice, there's peace, there's a whole bunch of things. I'm sure it's a book that could keep getting updated, or you could slip things in. But we don't have any Wi-Fi at camp. So this is like super crucial
Love it.
for us in the summer.
I love that book. It's one of my favorite camp resources ever. And I'm surprised it hasn't been a tool of the week in 10 years of tools of the week. So great pick, Lily. If you are a camp musician, it has a really interesting way of notating the chords. It's different than you would see on most of the chord sheets or guitartab.com, any of that stuff. It's so it's a little fun way that I like for the musicians in the crowd. It's a fun way to do it. Doug, what's your tool?
My tool is, so I'm a part of this small group in the small town of New Hampshire I live in. We are having our 3rd annual Martin Luther King celebration in a few weeks, even though we're going virtual. It's this whole big thing. Anyway, one of the members of our group has, and really in camp tradition, I think, taken a song and kind of adapted it for the situation. And I think it's a beautiful song, America the Beautiful, but it's called America the Dream. If you go to americathedream.org and then click on videos, you can watch, I think I want to say at this point, there are maybe 3 videos for it right now. And watch all 3, some amazing singing in all 3 of them. But, it's a very interesting take on it, especially with what's going on in our world today.
Yeah, it's great. I looked at the site before we recorded, and I'm excited to watch through the videos.
No, if I can also say, it's basically it's taking kind of the vision of Martin Luther King Jr. and that's where the dream comes from. I guess I keep leaving that part out, but there we go.
Right, that's cool. It's great. I'm going to fail at the music themed tool of the week that just serendipitously happened, which makes me very happy. Mine is different, but related to what we're all doing, which is speaking on Zoom as we record. This is a company called Inbo, INBO. But again, if you're new to watching or listening to CampHacker, if you go to camphacker.tv/podcast, you will find the show notes from this recording and links to the stuff we've been talking about. So mine is the Inbo remote meetings cards. Several of you will have been on meetings with me where I hold up my hand-drawn cards to support fun things that people are saying as they go. And if you're listening to this while you're walking your dog, you'll have to go to YouTube. Anyway, this is the professional version of that thing I did by hand. Remote meeting cards are, things that you can hold up to the camera to express some interest or thanks or vote. My favorite is the ghost hug, where it says, you can't feel it, but it's there. I'm sending you a ghost hug. Nice. And so it's just silly like that. And
creepy too, but
yeah. So I'll check that out. So again, camphacker.tv/podcast for our show notes and to check out the stuff that people are recommending. Doug, if people have follow-up questions for you, where can they get in touch?
I would say your best bet is just to email me at doug@doug-sutherland.com.
Excellent. Thanks for being on the show, Doug.
Oh, my pleasure. It was fun.
Lily, how about you? How can they get a hold of you?
You can email me at lily@campwawa, that's WAWA.org.
Thanks, Lily, for being a part of this conversation.
Thanks so much.
Scott?
Currently, carrier pigeon or telegram work the best. You can do either. If those aren't working, you can try hit me at scott@thecampcounselor.com, spelled the American way.
Excellent. The Canadians add an extra L in counselor for some reason. We have lots of extra letters in our words. So anyway, I'm so grateful to the 3 of you for all of your work in getting this day started and for being a part of this conversation. I look forward to many more conversations like this. And again, if people want to check out the information and hire some campers of color to help your camp,
the CampHacker
better at
podcast
this,
is brought to you by Beth and
take
Travis
that level
Allison,
of intentionality
summer
that we
camp
have in so
leadership
many
training
things
and
just
marketing
expand
consultants.
it.
Thanks
Go
for
to
listening.
Black Lives Matter. Thanks for the evening, friends.
CampHacker, bringing your world into focus.
Hey Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, we hope that whenever you share an idea that you learned from the CampHacker podcast, conference, summer camp professionals group, or wherever else, that you're quick to give credit where credit is due. That way, we can all encourage more Camp Pros to share the tips and tricks that will make camp better.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.